The core of reactive programming with ArcsJS is the observable. In the next series of lessons, we'll be taking a deep dive into the observable, examining its behaviors, and seeing what makes observables unique. By the end of this section, you should be comfortable with the core concepts of observables and be prepared to dive into the ArcsJS library and all that it has to offer. Let's get started. Observables represent a stream or collection of data that can be delivered over time. To understand the observable, let's start by creating one. While ArcsJS offers a variety of helper methods for creating observables from just about anything, let's begin with the basics so we can better explore how all the pieces fit together. In the next section, once we have a solid grasp on what an observable is, we will explore a variety of helper functions that can automate this observable creation process. To start, let's import the observable class from ArcsJS. Observable, the classes associated with observables, as well as the helper functions that create observables, all come from this base ArcsJS path. To create our first observable, we can new up an instance. So let's create a variable called observable and call new observable. If you prefer, you could also use the static observable.create function here, which behind the scenes just calls new observable. Either method accomplishes the same thing, but for the sake of this example, we'll just use the new keyword ourselves. The observable constructor accepts a function which receives a subscriber. Within this function is where you decide when and what values the observable will send to its subscriber. This is known as a push-based approach. The observable has the control, while the subscriber simply reacts to the data it receives. So how do we send the subscriber data? If we type subscriber dot, we can see it has a few methods. The first we will focus on is this next method. In ArcsJS, calling next on a subscriber is telling that subscriber that we have a new value for them. This is also known as pushing or emitting a value. The observable doesn't know or care what the subscriber will do with that value once it's received. It just sends it on its way. For our first example, let's push the value hello to the subscriber by calling the next method with that value. At this point, we've created an observable with a function that emits or pushes the value hello to its subscriber. Observables are lazy though, meaning until there is something actually subscribing to these emitted values, nothing will be run. It kind of makes sense though, right? How can this function be called with a subscriber if nothing has subscribed yet? In order to trigger an observable execution, you need to call subscribe on the observable. Calling subscribe on an observable is a way of hooking up an observable to its observer. Observers are the public vanilla version of the subscriber that this observable constructor function receives. When you call subscribe on an observable, it converts the observer you supply into a subscriber in order to safely handle things like completion, unsubscribing, and error handling. You can think of the observer and subscriber relationship kind of like Bruce Wayne and Batman. They're the same person, Batman just has extra abilities to keep people safe. In much the same way, subscribers are just the wrapped, safe version of an observer. Let's go ahead and create an observer now. So we'll create a variable called observer. Observers are just objects that can contain up to 3 properties. The first is the next property, which represents the happy path function that is invoked when the observable emits a new value. This function can be called 0 to many times. For this observer, let's just log the word next and any values we receive to the console. The second callback we can register is for errors. When an error occurs, the error callback is invoked once and is passed the error object. For this, we will log the word error with the error object to the console. The last callback we can provide is for when an observable completes. This can be invoked at most one time and does not receive any values. For the complete property, let's just supply a function that logs complete to the console. We will talk more about what completing an observable means here in a second. Now that we have an observer, we can supply it to the subscribe method and save. As you can see, the method we provided with the next property on our observer is invoked with the emitted value hello, causing it to be logged to the console. In this case, we are just emitting one value, but observables can deliver any number of values over any period of time. So for instance, if we wanted to also emit the word world to the subscriber, we could just add another next call underneath. When I save, you can see both hello and world were delivered to the observer, which logged both words to the console. The last thing we should do, since in this case we know we will only be emitting these 2 values, is to tell the subscriber that we are done. To do this, you can call complete. This prevents any future values from being delivered and runs any cleanup logic if required. So after the first value is emitted, let's call complete on the subscriber. When we save, you can see the words hello and world are logged, followed by complete from the complete callback we supplied. If we were to try to omit more values after complete, they would just be ignored. So if I copy and paste these two next calls underneath and save, you can see that nothing is logged. To recap, to create an observable from scratch, you can use the observable.create helper function or just new up an instance. The observable constructor takes a function that receives a subscriber. This subscriber is an enhanced version of the observer you supply when you subscribe in order to properly manage behavior like error handling and completion. Within this function, you can deliver 0 to many values to the subscriber by calling the next method. In order to hook up an observer to an observable, beginning an observable execution, you must subscribe. Observers can register up to 3 callbacks to be invoked by the observable. Next, for successfully emitted values, error to forward any errors that occur within your observable execution, and complete to be notified that no additional values will be delivered. Once you call complete, no more values will be delivered despite any subsequent next calls.